Hi everybody. I'm about to show you how that you can use lines called hatching or cross hatching to shade without having to worry about blending it perfectly and using the needed eraser and making it smooth. And it's a easy way, especially if you've played with cross contour at all, um, in order to get a real nice effect for lighting and dimension. Now, for those of you who've done cross hatching before, I got a little smaller version here. I sketched this out lightly. And when we do cross contour, what do we take a look at? The clues are here, this and this. So when we did cross hatching, contour drawing, we go this way. And you can see it's darker on this side of the mug and on the inside of the mug. So I am not putting too many lines over here. I'm just doing this now to set up the contour of the shape. Back in here, we're going in this direction. Now, right now I can see my coffee is dark. Coffee's dark. So if we want to make lines darker, we put those lines closer together. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a series of lines that are closer together. And this is like the opening of the cup right there. To make it darker. And you can see my coffee is darker. Some basic things that you can do, though, if that's not enough, I can actually go in the opposite direction. I could have the lines fan out this way, because the more lines I have, the darker it will appear. I could even go on a diagonal again if I want them to be even darker. Do you see that? Looks very cool. I can come and clean that up a little bit. Now on my mug, I think I'd like to have a little more shading going on in here. So what I'm going to do is, in fact, I'm going to add a small area here. Notice how I'm kind of making a little bit of a flick with my pencil, because then the line is darker and a little thicker where I want it to be darker, and it gets thinner and fades into the lighter area that I need to have. I'm also trying to stagger the length of the lines so that I don't get a stripy effect. I want the lines to interlock with the negative space. Now I think I'd like to make this edge a little darker, so I'm going to add more lines, but I'm still going to follow the contour, but I don't want to send them all the way out here, because then I get this stripy effect, which I call a skunk effect. Now here you can tell I kind of lost the contour a little bit, so I want to go back and I'm pressing and flicking. Sometimes it helps to even turn the paper. I'm going to bring my hand around here. And if you look at it's very dark along the edge, so I'm going to make a series of more lines, but shorter. I'm flicking, and I can actually press even harder, and you can see how that edge is becoming darker for me without even doing any cross hatch. I could do the same thing on this side a little bit. I don't know if it's quite as dark as that other side is. I can actually do it inside the handle. I can get something going in here. Back here, I could actually just make some lines going up and down if I follow that contour. And I could put a few in here in order to get that shading going. I could bring this line around. If I thought this needed to be a little darker, I could bring a few more out a little wider. If I wanted to, I could do a little bit of hatch this way, bring a line up and down to get a few more lines in there to create that gray, because here you can see this is a little bit of a darker gray now than the white portion is. What I like about doing this first is because now the next step could actually tie in with the way we shade if we want it to blend a little bit more. It also ties in with when we paint, how we use our brush strokes to help to show the dimension and texture of things. So in this case, if I wanted to shade this a little bit more closely to what it actually looks like, and even those of us who may not be very good with blending our shading, I might want to use a pencil stroke that actually goes in this direction. Look at how I'm using a pencil stroke that follows the contour of my cup. Do you see that? Let me clean this up a little bit. I'm following, and sometimes it might be easier, I can actually turn this way so that now I have even a little more control. I can make it a little bit darker back here, but I'm trying to blend this in. Look, using contour line, I press a little harder there, and I tend to do more of this back and forth. Instead of single strokes, I'm going back and forth with my pencil, and I'm lightening my touch as I go. So again, a staggered kind of a line, just like we did with the hatching, but I'm keeping that stroke kind of doing this. Look at the difference. You see, let's compare the two. Where these lines are much more deliberate, these are doing kind of the same thing, but I'm doing more of a zigzaggy approach to it. Almost a little bit of a scribble, but it's an organized scribble. I'm doing the squint test right now, and I can notice this edge. Do you see that? I'm going to go back and do a little more of a stagger so that it blends in better. Look, it's almost like a scribbled effect, but I'm following the contour of the mug. And out here, fewer lines. A lighter touch. Down on the bottom, it's a little bit darker. I'm finding also that as I lose the point on my pencil, even though I'm doing this, I'm getting somewhat of a blended effect, even if I don't want one. How about that? So we've gone from hatching with very clean lines that probably would be done most likely with ink, okay? But if this is something that's of interest to you, that's a great way to add some interest and shading to your work. To this, where we're shading, and you know, I'm not very good at blending, so let me use the idea of hatching in order to get some shading going, and it's the same effect, but now my strokes, again, are staggered. I press a little bit harder and follow the contour of my shape where I want it darker. And as we come across to the lighter area, I'm lightening up my touch and I'm spreading the lines apart. And you can see the difference between this and this. I'm getting a rounded effect because I am even the light source at this point. The darks tend to go in, lights tend to come forward. Here, where I have my coffee, I'm going to keep the idea of contour going. Go top and bottom. Even here, look, contour. I'm not going against the grain. Can you imagine if on this side I decided to do this? Look how much I lose. Look how much I lose in terms of dimension just by me following that cross contour. I get an additional punch, an additional dimension to my drawings. Keep it in mind, this could be a very helpful technique for you to do, as well as this. Have fun shading, everybody.